Amaterasu, the sun goddess, watched over the emperors of Japan and gave them power. Their authority was absolute. An emperor could retire from the world and still have complete mastery over Japan. But now, imperial might is crumbling, weakened by 3 noble families. For many years, the Taira have secretly controlled the imperial court. Sophisticated, cunning, ruthless, they plot against any challengers to their hidden power. The Minamoto are proud warriors. Their pleasure is battle. That and the destruction of their enemies. The Fujiwara were once the most powerful family in Japan, but now they only dream of power. After years of careful planning, the Taira are finally ready to make their move. The Miyamoto intend to block with all their might. Meanwhile, the Fujiwara watch and wait. Perhaps this moment is a chance to right wrongs. The imperial peace is at an end. War is coming, and blood will flow. Amaterasu rightly despaired of the emperor. Victory is ours. The blood of our enemies has purified the land. We will change Japan forever. This is the time of the Shogun.
I am Kublai Khan, the Great Khan. My lands stretch from sunrise to sunset. I reach out my hand, and all men tremble. I ride with the horde at my back. We conquer everything before us. We attack. We conquer. We are fearless and unstoppable. From the far Danube to the heart of ancient China, we ride and no enemy is left alive. My warriors? Ha! There are none greater in all the world. And these samurai will stand against us. Us! They are fools and will die like fools. Their Japan will be mine. This I promise.
When the Mongols came to my land, many were afraid. We had heard tales of Kublai Khan, tales of his warriors, terrible stories. But to be afraid and do nothing because of tales told in the darkness was not the way. It is the way of the samurai to face an enemy and defeat him. So the samurai took up the sword and the bow. They faced the Mongols and drove them back into the sea, back to China. Their dead were numberless. Because of this, my land endures, Japan endures.
The year is 1530. For 200 years, the Ashikaga shogunate has ruled Japan from their capital in Kyoto. The recent Onin War has shown that they no longer have the power to control Japan's great clans. The time has come for a new warrior to claim the title of shogun. Japan is divided between ruthless warlords. Armies grow stronger, only to be depleted in the frequent vicious battles that give this era its deserving name, Sengoku Jidai, the age of the country at war. Year after year, the endless plains that divided the clan's territories are stained with the blood of thousands of brave samurai, fighting for their liege lord and for their honor. When necessary, accept help from others, not of our lands. Gaijin can be useful pawns in your campaign, as they bring guns from overseas. If they become a nuisance, they should be expelled from our shores, or even eliminated. When there is no other way, assassination can be instrumental in gaining victory. Even a general who is invincible in battle is as vulnerable as a child when asleep. Use the men of the shadows, for they excel in the deliverance of death by night. No one is untouchable. Honor is everything to samurai. A man who loses face and his honor must then also lose his head. This is Bushido, the way of the warrior. Follow these rules of wisdom that have been handed down through generations, and your victory will be complete. Japan can be ruled completely by only one man, a great warrior, general, and strategist. To become shogun will require battles to be won with the mind as well as the sword. Now is your time. Let total war begin.
Beauty and harmony, governed by one eternal law. All that begins must end. The reign of the old shogunate is over.
(1545). This is Sengoku Jidai, the age of the country at war. 200 years, the Ashikaga shoguns have ruled from Kyoto. Great splendor and power were theirs. Now, the overmighty clans no longer obey. The time has come for a new warlord to become Shogun! But who will be victorious? Other lands have always provided for our people. Our enemies are many and envious. They threaten our borders and look for any weakness. Others may covet titles, but Ashigaru, common spearmen, are the bedrock of Oda might. All know us, the commanders of 1,000 spears. It is an honor to lead such a man. Our generals are battle-scarred veterans of a righteous strength. Bishamonten, the war god has awoken. Now is the time to defeat our enemies! All will bow to the Oda clan. We wait no longer. Destiny calls!
(1545). This is Sengoku Jidai, the age of the country at war. For 200 years, the Ashikaga shoguns have ruled from Kyoto. Great splendor and power were theirs. Now the overmighty clans no longer obey. The time has come for a new warlord to become shogun. But who will be victorious? Tokugawa lands have always provided for our people. Our enemies are many and envious. They threaten our borders and look for any weakness. Our wars have a power beyond the sword. But if wars fail in shadows, in silence, our ninja. To know deception is to be on guard against its use. Few can hide from our Mitsuke. We have Imagawa friends. Diplomacy does much. Our allegiance gives us security, but we must stand alone. Bishamonten, the war god, has woken. Now is the time to defeat our enemies. All will bow to the Tokugawa clan. We wait no longer. Destiny calls.
Strangers have come to our shores. They bring weapons of smoke and fire. Weapons that kill without honor, without skill. But even so, these foreigners and their guns could give a man power and victory. And victory wipes away dishonor.
Lord Mitsunari arrived at Sekigahara before Lord Ieyasu and camped on Mount Sasao. During the night, Ieyasu's men made a difficult journey around Mount Nangu and entered Sekigahara, all the while hidden by a heavy mist. Such was the mist that leading units on both sides accidentally and briefly clashed. As the mist burnt away, I could see Lord Ieyasu's command post set up at the foot of Mount Nangu. His men took their positions on the battlefield. The young Lord Hideaki has taken an excellent position on Mount Matsu. However, there are rumors of a plot by Hideaki to betray Lord Mitsunari. I, Otani Yoshitsugu, have placed my troops in front of Lord Hideaki's force. I'm concerned that other betrayals and insults will bear fruit. Will Lord Shima's fight after the insults he endured from Lord Mitsunari? Only time will tell.
My ancestors will be proud. We drew the sword and went to war. Our enemies are scattered. The cities burned. All who opposed us are crushed. Their dead are silent. We Tokugawa are triumphant. From the northern mountains to the depths of the southern seas, we rule. I rule. The true master of Japan has been revealed. All men bow to me, the mighty Shogun. Our clan's greatness will be remembered. Its glory, its power. A legacy to last 10,000 years.
With final victory secured, the dominance of our clan could not longer be disputed. Faced with our invincible armies, all Japan was forced to accept the supreme leadership of a single daimyo. The heritage of our clan supported the legitimacy of our noble lord to declare himself Sei Taishogun, and thereby to found a dynasty which would determine the future of Japan and guarantee the immortality of our honor. There were some fools who did not accept the supremacy of the new shogun, but the battles which we fought to crush their insolence did not threaten our survival, as had the great battles of the past, but merely ensured that the skills of our samurai remained honed in the field of war. All the wealth of Japan flowed to the shogun, and he used it to raise mighty castles. The greatest of these was the fortress at Edo, which became the hub from which the shogun's power radiated to even the most distant provinces. Former rivals were obliged to march from every corner of Japan to subjugate themselves before the shogun. Every warrior was now under his direct control, and if any thought that the shogunate was repressive, then they were shrewd enough to keep these thoughts to themselves. All aspects of life were guided by the will and wisdom of the shogun. He encouraged the samurai to train in the arts of writing and painting, as well as the way of the warrior, while the emperor himself was freed from the distraction of day-to-day power. The order of society rested on strict enforcement of the social hierarchy. The peasants were reminded of their obligations at the point of a sword, and were soon convinced to settle into their jobs of growing, making, carrying, breeding, and paying taxes for the shogun. Once again, Japan became a land for the Japanese, and there was no longer any need for the foreigners' strange superstitions or their coward weapons, and they were not missed when the bamboo curtain descended. Under this firm hand, Japan was never again torn apart by ambitious and grasping rivals as it had been during the Sengoku Jidai. United, the nations thrived, and the sons of the shogun continued to rule by obeying the traditions set down by our forefathers for hundreds of years.
After the Sengoku Jidai, peace reigned for 200 years. In Kyoto, the emperor continued as divine head of state. But real power was held by the Tokugawa shogunate. For 2 centuries, they ruled with absolute authority. Japan prospered. The people were content. In 1853, American warships changed everything. The shogun abandoned his people and signed the Treaty of Peace and Amity. The gates to Japan were open. Trade was established, but the agreements favored the Western powers. The economy faltered, and the people suffered. In 1863, the emperor overruled the shogun. An imperial decree ordered the expulsion of all Western powers. No longer would Japan be westernized. The time had come to strike back. Western powers gave their answer.
Prepare to run out the guns. On my command, fire!
The treacherous Westerners brought death to our people. The shogun no longer commanded respect or loyalty. Imperial rule had to be restored. To strengthen our position, the emperor made peace with the British. We will study their ways and discover their secrets. Only then can we destroy the shogun and return honor to Japan. The emperor must be victorious. After the Battle of Sekigahara, the Tokugawa shogunate dominated Japan. Those who fought Tokugawa Ieyasu became the Tozama, the outsiders. Disgraced, the Tozama daimyo and their descendants were forever excluded from positions of power. Instead, they looked abroad, prospering through commerce with China and the West. Threatened by the newly wealthy Tozama, Tokugawa Iemitsu, grandson of Ieyasu, closed the ports of Japan, banning all foreign trades. For over 200 years, Japan remained isolated. With no enemies, the power of the shogunate waned. Then in 1853,
a fleet of American warships forced open the ports of Japan. The shogun was humiliated. Revolutionary ideas and machines from the West began to flood the country. With the shogun's position weakened, his enemies begin to circle. The Tozama daimyo, even the emperor himself, see the chance to bring down the Tokugawa and rule Japan. It is a time of great political tension in Japan. The Tokugawa shogunate is in turmoil. The Satsuma and Choshu clans have rallied to the emperor in a bid to restore his power. Their troops mass in the imperial capital Kyoto in an effort to intimidate the political classes. They are led by Saigo Takamori, a samurai from Satsuma province. Respected throughout Japan for his honor and integrity, Takamori believes passionately in the emperor's cause. He is prepared to fight to see the emperor restored to political prominence at the former days. He stretches the patience of the shogun, and now it has snapped. From his base in Osaka Castle, Shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu has sent a letter to the emperor's court detailing Takamori's treachery. To ensure that the letter reaches the emperor, Yoshinobu has sent his army to deliver it. Saigo Takamori has no intention of letting the shogun's army reach Kyoto. He has blocked the road at Toba and Fushimi. And so war has come. Your task is to prevent the shogunate army from reaching Kyoto.
The Shogun's advance has been broken! His men flee in disarray! Daylight is failing, and the enemy are setting up camp nearby. Let us do likewise.
The shogun's army has been thrown back after a day of heavy fighting. He still maintains a significant force, and now his sword is fully drawn. There is no pretense of anything but open battle. However, the victory of the Choshu and Satsuma forces has brought political gains overnight. They now have support from nearby Kyoto, including from the emperor's relatives. Saigo Takamori and his allies are united under the imperial banner. The shogunate army now see that they defy the will of the emperor. Drive them from the battlefield. Political maneuvering and military tension have become full-scale war. Saigo Takamori has won a great victory in the emperor's name. The shogunate army are in full retreat to Osaka Castle, the seat of the shogun himself. The imperial forces give chase, and the war goes on. Any pretense of diplomacy is now no more than clouds on the wind. Civil war engulfs the land. The forces loyal to the Tokugawa shogunate have been pushed back to Osaka Castle. The Satsuma and Choshu clans, led by Saigo Takamori, march on Osaka, ready for battle. Only a few days have passed since war broke out at Toba Fushimi. The fearsome samurai, Saigo Takamori and his imperial army are marching against the Tokugawa shogun himself. Tokugawa Yoshinobu's seat is Osaka Castle, a formidable fortress surrounded by water. The scattered Tokugawa loyalists have regrouped here. They defend the town and castle in great numbers. Takamori's scouts report that shogunate troops have been spotted moving large amounts of gunpowder. The activity seems to be centered on the wall towers of the castle. Perhaps they are storing it there. The scouts also report that Tokugawa Yoshinobu himself has fled by ship. The shogun will have to watch his castle burn. Defeat the shogunate army, capture Osaka Castle, and burn it as a demonstration of the emperor's wrath. From a ship in Osaka Bay, Tokugawa Yoshinobu watches his castle burn. He has now been driven from the southern half of a country he supposedly rules. Through courageous leadership in battle, Saigo Takamori has tipped the balance of power in Japan. His samurai followers see him as a hero, and his achievements are celebrated throughout the land. Following the destruction of Osaka Castle, Shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu returns to Edo by sea. His army is smashed. Japan is in turmoil. Support for the shogunate in central and southern Japan has collapsed. Clans flock to the emperor's banner. Imperial forces march across central Japan, facing only token resistance. Tokugawa Yoshinobu, with insufficient manpower to defend Edo, surrenders the city and his position. Some loyalist shogunate troops, however, refuse to surrender. At Ueno near Edo, a loyalist army digs in. They must be removed. Confronted by the might of the imperial army, Shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu has surrendered Edo and his authority. Saigo Takamori is succeeding in his quest to restore the powers of the emperor. He is now the most celebrated samurai in all Japan. Despite the resignation of the shogun, some troops around Edo are still loyal to his cause. They hold out in Kangeiji Temple on Ueno Hill, to the northeast of the city. They are dug in around the temple complex and must be removed by force. Saigo Takamori's plan is for a frontal attack, supported by reinforcements from the west. He knows that the attack will face heavy resistance and insists on leading the main assault. Takamori's imposing presence on the battlefield could be crucial in achieving victory today. Victory at Ueno is the end of shogunate resistance in central Japan. Saigo Takamori has now all but assured the restoration of the emperor to his rightful role as ruler of Japan. With a loyalist defeat at Ueno, central and southern Japan are now united under the imperial banner. Shogun Tokugawa Yoshinobu has retired, and his capital, now renamed Tokyo, is firmly under the emperor's control. In the north of the country, however, an alliance of domains still oppose the revolution and the imperial army. Forces from Aizu oppose the imperial advance at every turn. Saigo Takamori resolves to snuff out any remaining resistance. a domain in the north of Japan, has been home to stalwart supporters of the shogunate since the beginning of the war. They are the cornerstone of northern resistance. Saigo Takamori's dream of restoring the emperor depends upon this resistance being eliminated. The imperial army is approaching from the east, and Takamori must bring this force through the mountains. He knows the pass will be heavily defended. The Ice defenders are divided into 4 groupings. The exact locations of these forces are unknown. Takamori must overcome whatever traps the Ice defenders have set to win the north for his emperor. Saigo Takamori has dedicated his life to restoring the power of the emperor. With victory at Aizu, the entire Japanese mainland has been conquered in this cause. Despite the abdication of the Tokugawa shogun and the capitulation of the northern lords, there are still a few loyal to the shogunate's cause. These die-hard loyalists are retreating north. There is now a so-called republic on the island of Ezo. These men know that control of the sea is vital to repel the imperial government. However, the Imperial Navy has just taken delivery of a new ironclad warship, the Kotetsu. The rebels of Ezo know that it is stationed in Miyako Bay on Japan's northeast coast, and they mean to steal it. The mainland is now firmly under Imperial control. However, to the north, shogunate loyalists have established a breakaway, Ezo Republic. The Republic controls a good proportion of the former shogunate navy. At sea then, the sides are evenly matched. The Imperial Navy, though, has a new weapon. The Kotetsu, a state-of-the-art ironclad warship, is more advanced by far than any ship in the Ezo Navy. The Ezo have launched a daring raid to capture or sink the ironclad. The Kotetsu is trapped in Miyako Bay, protected by a small Imperial flotilla. Her engines are undergoing maintenance and will take time to reassemble. Until then, she cannot move or fire. Repel the Ezo Navy and protect the Kotetsu. The Ezo raid of Miyako Bay has failed. Imperial losses have been heavy, but the Kotetsu survives. Now, at the Emperor's command, she will cut a path to Ezo. The Ezo Republic has failed in their attempt to capture the Kotetsu, and the coast of Ezo Island is defenseless. Takamori gathers the Imperial Army for one final attack, one last battle, to defeat the Tokugawa loyalists. The Ezo defenders dig in at Hakodate to make a final stand. The last of the Tokugawa loyalists are entrenched on Ezo Island. They are preparing to make their final stand around a modern star fort built just a few years previously. Saigo Takamori's long journey to restore imperial power and prestige will end here. However, his fleet became spread out during the crossing from the mainland. Takamori's forces are now split, scattered along the Edo coast. The loyalist army see an opportunity to strike and advance. Saigo Takamori now finds himself on the defensive. He must weather the assault and then unite his army before Hakodate Castle can be taken. Takamori and his imperial allies succeeded in extinguishing the last embers of Tokugawa support on the 17th of May, 1869. A new government was formed with Emperor Meiji as its head. The Meiji government made sweeping reforms. The samurai lost their privileges in society, and the power and domains of the daimyo were abolished. Japan abandoned its policy of international isolation and rapidly became a modern nation. However, many traditionalists were resentful, and they had a powerful figurehead to rally around. 80 years after the Meiji Restoration, the great samurai Saigo Takamori rebelled. Initially successful, the rebels were hopelessly outnumbered and were soon pushed back to Satsuma. On a hillside with his few remaining men, Takamori made his final stand. Surrounded by thousands of government troops, he died a warrior's death. Saigo Takamori would be remembered as the last of the samurai. Victory is reserved for those who are willing to pay its price. We have paid that price, and now we reap the rewards. The time of the Shogun is over. All hail the mighty Emperor!